Everyone, I'd like to present a little surprise, my mom said, lifting a silver-framed document from beneath the gift table at my brother's baby shower. There were pastel balloons floating behind her, soft jazz playing in the background, and relatives clapping, completely unaware. She turned the frame toward the room like it was a trophy, a gift from all of us to the new family. I was sipping punch when my eyes caught the corner of the document, and my heart dropped. It was the deed to my apartment, the one I bought, the one I paid off, the one I had spent years building alone. My dad leaned toward me, voice low and smiling. You have 40 days to vacate. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. I just smiled. My name is Alyssa Hart, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been stabbed in the back so politely it almost felt like a kiss? I stood there, frozen in the golden afternoon light of the community hall. My brother, Jason, laughed as guests surrounded him, taking photos. His wife, Marissa, clutched her baby bump, glowing. I looked at them. Then I looked at my parents, my mother clapping like she hadn't just handed away my home, and my father shaking hands like a proud man who'd orchestrated a brilliant move. I stepped outside, heels crunching on the gravel as I opened my phone. Inside, my fingers didn't tremble. I wasn't angry. I was calculating. The apartment they gifted, it was in my name. The furniture, bought by me. The renovations, all under my account. The washer and dryer they were gifting to my brother and his wife, installed by me 3 months ago. I walked to my car, shut the door gently, and sat in silence, the hum of the city muffled by glass. People say revenge is a fire. Mine? It was frost. By the time the last guest hugged goodbye that night, I was already in motion. 2 calls, 1 favor owed, and a folder I'd been keeping for months, just in case I ever needed to remind them whose name was on the title. When I pulled into my driveway that evening, I looked at the building and smiled. Not a warm smile, a quiet one, cold and clean, because if they thought I'd cry over their betrayal, they forgot who they raised. At 7:12 a.m. the next morning, a white moving truck with no logo backed up into the apartment lot. 2 men in steel-toed boots stepped out. One of them nodded at me, clipboard in hand. Full extraction, he asked. Everything, I said. Cabinets, fixtures, flooring, right down to the screws I paid for. He gave a slow whistle. That kind of job usually takes a crew. I've got one, I replied, holding up my phone. And I pay better than betrayal. Inside the apartment, sunlight spilled across polished wooden floors. The same ones I had refinished myself last fall. The kitchen smelled faintly of vanilla, the scent of the diffuser I had placed by the window. They were stealing memories wrapped in drywall and calling it love. My name might have been on the deed, but to them, I was just a placeholder, a tool. I stood in the doorway while the removal crew began disassembling the custom cabinetry I'd paid a carpenter $9,600 to build. Piece by piece, shelf by shelf, they packed my life into labeled crates. They weren't just removing fixtures, they were removing the illusion my family had tried to sell as a gift. While one worker unscrewed light fittings, another peeled off floorboards section by section, stacking them like folded skin. I walked into the bedroom. The curtains were open. On the nightstand was a congratulations, Uncle Jason card, probably left during the baby shower tour of my home. It had gold foil and baby footprints. I picked it up gently. Then I ripped it in half. By noon, every piece of my design, the countertops, my wine racks, my pendant lights, was gone. At 1:35 p.m., I had the cleaning team come in and polish the empty apartment to a silent, echoing shine. At 2:02 p.m., I sat alone in the center of the bare living room, sipping an iced coffee. No one had noticed yet. But the silence, it was ticking. At exactly 6:41 p.m., my phone buzzed. Jason, brother, is this a joke? I let the message sit, then typed back. Me, not yet. But tomorrow's delivery might be. I knew exactly what was arriving the next morning. A little something wrapped in cardboard and payback, tied with a bow my parents would never forget. Revenge doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it just rings the doorbell and smiles. The next morning, I woke before the sun. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I was focused. The kind of stillness that comes after the fire has burned out and only precision remains. I wore black jeans, a leather jacket, and tied my hair back. Not because I wanted to look tough, but because I didn't want a single strand in my way. At exactly 7 a.m., I parked across from my parents' house. The baby blue balloons from the baby shower were still on their porch, deflated now, sagging, forgotten, like every promise they'd made me. Then I saw the delivery truck turn the corner. Perfect timing. A white box truck with bold red text on the side. Custom returns. You left something behind. My idea. My message. The driver hopped out and waved. You Alyssa? I nodded. You know the plan? Yep. Drop everything at the front door. Fragile on top. He popped the back open, revealing crates of disassembled wood, boxes of light fixtures, and carefully packed metal cabinet pieces. On top of the stack sat a folded shower curtain, the same one I had picked out with my own hands on a rainy Tuesday 2 years ago. As he and his partner unloaded, I stood at the end of the driveway, filming from a distance. Every bolt, every light bulb, every floorboard was left with a printed inventory list. Return to sender, it read. At 7:41 a.m., the job was done. By 7:45 a.m., I hit send on the group chat my parents and Jason were in. Delivery complete. Everything you took, I took back. Let's never confuse ownership with obligation again. I blocked them after that. No need to explain myself to thieves in family clothing. I drove off, leaving the entire pile of memories and manipulation stacked neatly on their porch, like a gift wrapped in shame. By noon, I had already closed on a new place. Smaller, cleaner, and most importantly, mine, untouched by betrayal. At 1:30 p.m., my best friend Valerie showed up with a bottle of chilled champagne. She didn't ask questions. She just hugged me and said, "About time." We toasted to peace, and the sound of glass clinking in the empty kitchen echoed louder than any applause I ever got from my parents. I spent the rest of the day assembling a new desk, laughing with Valerie about how my mom once said I was too intense to be lovable. "You're not intense," she said. "You're just finally not apologizing." That night, I lay in bed in my new apartment, floor unfinished, curtains still in boxes, but I slept like I hadn't in years. Because nothing weighs heavier than false loyalty. And I had finally dropped it. But what I didn't know was this. They weren't done. They were about to come for me again, this time through legal paperwork. And this time, I would destroy them completely. It arrived on a Thursday morning. A thick white envelope, stamped with a gold fame seal and slid under my apartment door. Inside, a letter from my parents' attorney. Formal, full of legal language, but the message was simple. They were suing me. Unlawful removal and intentional destruction of family property. They claimed emotional damages. They demanded $68,000 in losses. I stared at the paper and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I had seen it coming. My dad had always been a corporate bully. And my mom. She'd never get her hands dirty when she could use someone else's. They wanted to break me on paper since they couldn't control me in person. I called my lawyer, Mr. Pike. He had known me since my first property purchase. I didn't even need to explain. I just forwarded the document. 2 hours later, he called back. "They have no case," he said. "But I'm guessing this is more personal than legal." "Oh, it's personal," I replied. "But I want it handled professionally. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to finish." He chuckled. "Then let's finish loud." I sent him every receipt. Floorboards, fixtures, washer-dryer model numbers, even the wine racks. Digital proof that not only had I paid for everything, but the entire apartment was legally mine, purchased in full under my name. The deed they flashed at the baby shower. A printed duplicate, just for show. But that wasn't the part that stung me. What hurt was that they'd rather take me to court than say sorry. I thought about every birthday I showed up for, every time I loaned them money, every holiday I rearranged to keep them happy. To them, none of that mattered, because I had stopped playing the grateful daughter role and started acting like an equal. That was my real crime. The next morning, my lawyer filed a counter notice. Malicious misuse of legal channels and a cease and desist for harassment. By the end of the week, they received their own thick white envelope. And this time, I didn't just stand by. I posted it, publicly. I uploaded a single photo on social media. Me smiling, holding the original apartment deed, standing in front of my new place. Caption: when they try to sue you for what's already yours, smile and serve them peace with paperwork. The comments exploded. Old friends messaged me things like, I always knew something was off about your parents. Even Jason stayed quiet. But then, a knock came I wasn't expecting. Marissa, my brother's wife. She stood at my door, eyes rimmed red, holding something in her hand. I didn't know, she said. They told me you donated it. I swear. She handed me a folded piece of paper. It was my original email, the one I sent our parents a year ago stating my full payment and asking them not to share any legal details with Jason or his wife. My mom had deleted it from the group thread. I'm pregnant, Alyssa, Marissa said softly, and I don't want our child raised in lies. That was the first time someone from my family looked me in the eye and chose truth. But I still wasn't done. The final lesson was coming, and this time it would be delivered to their front door by someone they never saw coming. I didn't plan on involving Jason, not because I wanted to protect him, but because I assumed he knew. Turns out, he didn't. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. I need to talk. Please, just me. It was him. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. No balloons. No fake smiles, just two siblings with blood between them, and now, something heavier. He showed up late, wearing the same baby blue hoodie he'd worn at the shower. But he looked older, tired. I had no idea, he said before sitting. Mom and Dad said you offered the place as a surprise, that you were moving on. I didn't speak. I just slid a manila folder across the table. Receipts, photos, timeline, the truth, paper-clipped and cold. He flipped through it, slower with each page. Then he stopped at the photo of the moving crew outside our parents' house. His voice cracked. They said you were being dramatic, that you were bitter about me having a family now. They lied, I said, because I stopped being convenient. Jason leaned back, exhaling hard. Marissa told me what you said, about the email. About everything. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. He looked down at the folder again, like it was a time bomb counting down the years of silence between us. Then he said something that surprised me. I'm sorry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it was the first time someone in that house had acknowledged I was more than just functional. And for a second, the anger cracked. But I wasn't finished. You know they are going to spin this, I said. Make me look like the bitter daughter who couldn't handle her little brother getting a deed. I know, he said, but I've got something that might help. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a recording. My parents, in the living room. Mom, she'll get over it. She always does. Besides, it's not like she'll sue her own family. Dad, let her. She doesn't have the spine. All she does is work and pay bills. She's not built to fight. Jason hit pause. I recorded it the night after the shower. I wasn't sure why, but now, you'll know exactly how little they think of you. I stayed at the screen, then at my brother. I didn't forgive him. Not yet. But he gave me something real. And real was all I'd ever wanted from any of them. That night, I sent the audio to my lawyer. We included it in the countersuit. The next morning, the deposition changed. The moment that file was played, my parents' attorney froze. "That's not part of our discovery," he said stiffly. Mr. Pike smiled. "It is now." In one soundbite, they exposed themselves. The manipulation, the malice, the motive. By the time we walked out of that conference room, my parents weren't just losing. They were unraveling. But I still had one last piece, and it was already en route. The courtroom was quiet, not because it was over, but because my parents were finally realizing something. I wasn't backing down. Their attorney had tried to pivot after the audio, claimed it was taken out of context, that it was family venting. But the judge didn't flinch, and neither did I. Outside, the sky was gray. Inside me, it was clearer than it had ever been. That afternoon, I submitted my final motion, the one they hadn't seen coming. A formal request for reimbursement of all property assets removed from the apartment, backed by a notarized itemized inventory, each one time-stamped, signed, and matched with financial records. Total claim, $72,465.80. They had walked me into a courtroom hoping to humiliate me, and I was walking them out with interest. My dad glared across the room like he was seeing a stranger. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Jason sat behind me, still and silent. My lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, "They'll settle. Wait for it." 2 days later, the call came. "We're withdrawing," their attorney said. "No further action. They're agreeing to all your terms." I asked, "All of them?" "Yes. The financials, the online apology, the public acknowledgement." He paused. "And the restraining order. Your father isn't allowed to contact you without written consent." I hung up, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I had finally cut the last string. The following week, I posted my final update online. A thread titled, "When your family tries to evict you from what you built, and you hand them a blueprint for regret." I didn't name names. I didn't need to. But the screenshots spoke for themselves. The deed, the messages, the before and after photos of my stripped apartment, and finally, the court notice stamped in bold. Support poured in like a wave I never saw coming. Strangers, survivors, even cousins I hadn't heard from in years messaged me. They did the same to me. "You made it out. I'm proud of you." But the real closure? It came in a cardboard box. 2 weeks later, left outside my door. No name, no note. Inside, a baby Odyssey, folded neatly, with the words, "Truth looks good on you, Aunt Alyssa." It was from Marissa, and maybe Jason, maybe both. I stood there, holding that tiny piece of fabric in my hands, and I cried, not because I was hurt, but because I had finally created something real from everything fake they tried to bury me with. Justice didn't roar. It whispered, in a child's gift, in a legal line, in a sister's silence broken by action. But I had one final move left. Not for them. For me. I bought a hammer. Not a metaphor. A real, weighty, cold-in-your-hand hammer from the local hardware store. The guy behind the counter smiled and asked, "Small project?" I nodded. "Yeah, just reclaiming my peace." He laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. The same day I picked up the hammer, I signed the final document transferring ownership of the original apartment to the city's Community Development Board, on the condition it be turned into temporary housing for single women leaving abusive homes. The city had no idea what hit them. "Wait," the rep said. "You're giving this away? A fully paid apartment in a prime neighborhood?" "Not giving," I said. "Returning it to women who never had the luxury of being believed." That night, I stood in the center of the now empty unit, the same one that had once held my memories, then my betrayal, then my revenge. And I swung, not in anger, but in release. I took down the last mounted shelf, the last mirror, and finally, the decorative wooden sign my mother gave me when I moved in. "Family is everything." I smashed it, cleaned down the center. Glass splinters flew. A piece cut my hand. I smiled. Fitting. A week later, the mayor's office issued a press release thanking the anonymous donor who converted the space into a transitional shelter for vulnerable women. I didn't need credit. I had something better. Silence. Powerful, controlled silence, the kind that speaks louder than shouting ever could. Meanwhile, my parents had gone underground. No more Facebook posts. No baby shower bragging. Just closed profiles and stiff smiles in the one family photo Jason sent me. They looked smaller. Not in size. In stature. Jason had moved out. He called once, just to say, "I think I finally get it." I didn't ask what it was. If he got it, really got it, he wouldn't need to explain. But the part that really broke me was the letter. Handwritten. Mailed. No return address. From my mother. "You were always the strong one. We just didn't know how to love you without controlling you. I won't ask for forgiveness. I wouldn't even know what to do with it. But I hope you find peace. You earned it." I folded the letter neatly, placed it in a fireproof box. Not to destroy it, but to remember the one time she finally told the truth. Still, I didn't write back, because this was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming my name from people who thought they owned it. And I had. But I still had one thing left to do. The final move. Not a knock this time. A door wide open, waiting. I stood on the stage with the MIC in my hand and a calm heart in my chest. The room was full, not with family, but with women like me. Survivors. Fighters. Silent daughters who had finally found their voice. The event was a fundraiser for the new shelter, the one my apartment had become. They'd named it Allie's Place. I never asked them to, but when the committee voted, they said, "You didn't just give us a building. You gave us a blueprint." The crowd quieted. I looked out, spotting Jason in the back row, Marissa beside him, holding their newborn daughter. Then I began. I was raised to believe that loyalty meant silence, that family meant sacrifice, that being a good daughter meant disappearing when others needed space. I paused, but one day I realized the apartment I paid for wasn't just a home. It was a metaphor. I built something real, something solid, and they handed it away like a party favor. Soft gasps. A few tears. I took everything back. Not out of spite, but out of memory. Because no one should be expected to keep giving while they are bleeding. I glanced at the table where the original deed sat, now encased in glass. Next to it, the baby Odyssey Marissa had sent. "Peace doesn't always look like forgiveness," I said. "Sometimes, peace is a locked door. Sometimes, it's a courtroom. And sometimes, it's letting the silence echo louder than the betrayal ever could." Applause erupted, slow at first, then swelling. When it faded, I stepped down, heart thudding, but light. Jason met me outside after. He held out a small envelope. "What's this?" I asked. He smiled, tired but honest. "A letter from Mom. She asked me to give it to you if today felt right." I didn't open it. Not then. I simply placed it in my bag, looked him in the eye, and said, "Thanks for showing up." He nodded. I walked away, not angry, not vindicated. Free. At home. I finally read the letter. It was simple. "I watched the video. You were right to leave. But I hope someday you'll come back, not for us, for yourself, so we can meet the woman we never deserved, but who still became everything." No signature, just an old truth, finally released from a tired heart. I folded it gently, tucked it away. Then I opened my laptop and typed one word.